This is how I start with doing a trace for a painting or a drawing. I obviously choose the photograph that I want to use. So I'm on my Mac here and I want to use this painting of this dog. I'll then print it out. So I'll choose print, choose what format I want to fill the frame with. So I'll frame it there and I'll press print. That will then print to my HP printer, and I've got it set up so that it prints an A3 photo. So there we have my A3 print come out, photocopy from the computer, which I'll now use to do the trace from. So here we have my printed copy, and on the right hand side I have the tracing pad, which I'll use to trace the image off. So here we have the photocopy already and all done, and now I've got my tracing pad underneath, and then what I do is I slide the piece of the photocopy under the tracing paper, smooth it all out, and then I get my pencil and I start to trace the outline of the dog, just to guide. So I'm going along the paws because I'm gonna do the dog. I'm doing the lines of the dog, the outlines, and we start to draw our trace, which we will then transfer onto a canvas or paper or whatever you're going to use the image on. So we start tracing this out. We're just following the lines of the dog, and I just do this because I find it so much quicker than actually sketching the whole thing out and doing a grid. It's just the way I've worked for years, and I prefer to do it like this. Everyone has their own methods, but I always start like this for all of my paintings. It's a bit of a lazy way, but it's the way that I like to do it. So here we go. So I'm just going on the dog and I'm doing the paws and I'm shading in where the black parts of the paw will be the black fur. And sometimes it gets a bit difficult to see through the trace, and there's two ways where you can make this easier. You can either get a light box, which I also use, which I'll show you in a minute, or you can actually, if you don't have a light box and don't have the money to buy one, you can actually stick this to the window and you can see so much better what you're tracing through from the image. So you'd put the photocopy up against the window with the tracing pad over it, and therefore you can see much through the tracing paper so much better. So that's all of that. Oh, what a bit of movement there. So here I'll just indicate what way the fur's going. And it tells me when I'm painting or drawing what way the fur's going to go. So I'll do it like that, and then that will tell me. And then sometimes I'll put a little W in there for white, 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 and then sometimes I might do black. And then I'll just continue this, doing the outline of the dog. Doing the neck part. Start to do the face. And the nose, and I'm looking at the shapes and the way the shapes go, because it's not just always just a straight line. His little mouth's coming down there, and there's a little light there, and then I've got some shadow coming here. And then what I'll do, I'll show you in a second with a light box as well, and how much easier it makes it. So this is the A4 light box that I use. That's without it switched on. I'll switch it on and you get a light, and you can actually adjust whether you want the lights higher or lower on it. I'll switch it off. And then what I'll do, I'll put the trace on here, and you'll be able to see how you can see so much more detail once I switch the light on the light box, which helps with all the gradients of the fur. Now if I switch that on and I lighten it up, as you can see much more of that image now for tracing out. So now I can see I've got highlights here on the fur, and I'll indicate the direction of the fur. Here there's light bits. I can also now see that we've got this where the back leg is. The tail, I'll indicate that it's the direction of the fur again. And then here again we've got highlights in the fur, which I'll just trace out. Again, I do little tappy lines to indicate what way the fur's going, so that I've got all that in my reference when I come to paint. And again, we've got here around the neck, we've got white bits, and I'd normally put an M in there telling me that it's a medium. What I also do is draw the highlights, so I'm drawing an indication of where the lights will go, and that's a medium in there. I've got a little highlight here on the outside. I'd put an M for a medium so that I know what colour I'm looking at. And again, I'm just indicating all these highlights and roughly where they go. If there's any really dark bits, then I'll shade it in so that I know that that's going really dark there. And again, we got dark going in there and around that bit there. Right, I'll carry on and then I'll show you when I've completely finished the trace and what I've done. Right, so now I've finished my trace. I've taken it off the light box. The photocopy's underneath, which I'll now take away and show what I've done. Oh, there's a bit of lines there. So this basically my dog trace. And I've just indicated lines of fur. I normally do, so I put L for light, I put B for black, and I put M for medium. And I mark this on my trace, so I put a dark black there. I put a medium down here, medium here. A dark there, a light in that area, light there, so that when I'm actually then transferring the trace and I'm using the trace, I don't have to always refer back to the photographic reference, because I've already marked on there what's medium, what's light and what's dark, for putting the trace down onto whatever the surface that you're going to paint onto. So that's my trace. I've done all the eyes, I've roughed out the fur, and then that's where we're at to basically now start transferring it onto what you want to paint onto. So this is the next stage that I use, and I use this Sorel transfer paper. It comes in grey, white, blue, yellow and red. I normally use the white, which I like, and I also use the red. They're my two favourite colours. I don't use the other colours, so red and white are my two go-tos. So this is available in any art store. I'll see if I can put a link in the description if you want to use the transfer paper. You can also get a charcoal version, but I use these, and these last over and over and over again. You can use these time and time again, the same sheets. They're fantastic. They last me forever. So this is a sheet of the red that I've used before. As you can see, there's loads of marks where I've actually used it before. That's the reverse side. But I use a sheet like that, and I just use that over and over again for tracing down the image that I've just traced, which I'll show you the next steps next, okay? So these are the canvas panels. I actually get these from the range in the UK. I normally get a pack of 3 of these. And this is now what I'm going to actually put the tracing onto. Right, so here's my board that I want to transfer my trace onto. Here's my trace. And I don't actually want it at the angle. I don't want this line here. I want the dog to line up with the edges of the board. So I'm going to change the angle to that. So this and this is parallel. And the dog's centered within the painting itself. So I'm looking at the tail there and the paw, and I'm just lining everything up, making sure I'm sort of happy with it. So I think that's the angle that we're going to go with. And now what I do, I get some just usual masking tape from any hardware store or any DIY shop, and I'll just add a bit of tape to there just to hold it in place, because that's where I want the trace to stay. And then I'll add another little bit of masking tape there, just so that I can flap it. And then what I then use now is my used tracing down paper, which you want to slide. The dark red side will go facing down and the lighter side will go that you draw on. I'll then put that under my dog and I'll start to transfer the image. Right, so I've carried on doing a bit more of the tracing, and then what I'll just do, I'll just show you a little preview of what it's like underneath with the transfer paper. So anyway, I'll carry on and then I'll show you the completed thing once it's all done. Right, so I've taken our tracing paper off, taking this tracing off, and there's the finished image all ready to now draw onto.